Patrick Okigbo joins us next. He's the principal partner for Niger Advisory. Morning, and thank you for joining us. We're all looking at this matter to see how do we sort ourselves out. Definitely affecting business. What's your reading of what's going on?
Unfortunately, we had an opportunity to solve this problem. With the creation of the Niger Delta Amnesty Program, we had stabilized security situations in the Niger Delta. What was supposed to follow was the real development, but it never happened. And that's why we are where we are today, and we're beginning to see a decline in oil production. Ibekachukwu places it at 1.6 million. Some other analysts think that we're closer to 1 million or below 1 million barrels a day. That is beginning to affect both GDP as businesses are beginning to move out. It's also affecting power supply. Last month we had 6 days when we had 0 megawatt generation in Nigeria. So these are beginning to affect business, and will continue until we have an opportunity to solve the problem. So the resurgence of insurgency in the Niger Delta is significantly affecting business, and will continue to affect business until it's solved, and ultimately will affect our GDP growth, which probably by the end of this month will be officially in a recession.
Do you think the government has recognized where we dropped the ball and retracing our steps?
I don't see anything in what the government is doing today that indicates to me that we've learned any lessons. Well, thankfully, they've pulled back the military, because the military and all the Air Force that was flying by the Niger Delta, the creeks, was worsening the situation. But I don't see any good sign that we've really understood what the problems are, despite a lot of work that's been done. We haven't started hitting on the point. So what's the problem? The problem with the Niger Delta is not really money. Some research work we did close to the end of last year showed that between 2010 and 2014, about 7.75 trillion naira went into the Niger Delta region. That is way more than the budget of so many African countries combined. But we do not see the resultant outcome that you would expect. So the problem really is not money. The problem is the way the money is managed. There's no real transparency or accountability in the management of the monies, whether it's through Ministry of Niger Delta, NDDC, or whatever. And until we address those, until we relook the way we've approached development, we would not have the development that we require in the region. And I can expand more on these issues if need be.
I think we have to go back and look at those reports which you have carried out with your team. If you say some of the agencies that have been created by the government to bring about the desired development for the region hasn't helped that much, and we just heard from Ankyo Briggs and Young Peru the same thing. Did you also find out how best those intervention agencies can be better, utilized, so that the much desired, talked about development can come to the region?
Excellent. I mean, sometimes when we engage problems in Nigeria, we pretend that this is the first time these problems are happening anywhere in the world, and there are no models that we can look at or learn from, or that these problems have not been solved in Nigeria before now. The problem we have in the region, which is no different from the problem we have in many other parts of the country, is that you set up agencies, and the man who makes the decision on programs is the same man who makes decision on financials. So he decides on what programs, he decides on what to pay the money for, how to procure, etc. That model does not work anywhere else in the world. So if you take NDDC, for instance, it's the Director General of NDDC who decides what the program should be, who decides what, how much to put to it. Why can't we separate these two? Why does financing or financial management have to report to the CEO or the executive secretary or the director of whatever agency that is been implementing the program? Why can't we outsource financial management and procurement to a big global international firm that has a bigger franchise at risk? Take Citigroup, for instance. If you call them to manage the finances for NDDC, they have a multi-billion-dollar franchise at risk. They're not going to put it at risk for the little billions of dollars that we have in NDDC. So what I'm saying is that we need to kind of rethink our approach to how we've run these different organizations, and look at structures that will bring in more transparency, more accountability. It's not worked in the past because we know where we live in. We live in a very infinitely corrupt country. It's not a problem with NDDC alone, it's a problem with Nigeria. So we must relook our model on how we deliver development for Nigeria and for the region. For instance, you have an NDDC that's building primary schools or hospitals or roads, but you also have a Ministry of Niger Delta that's doing exactly the same thing. So they're duplicating the same projects, wasting resources. We haven't even gotten to the point of whether we're getting efficiency from the way the resources are being managed. So we need to relook the way these institutions are run to ensure that we get good bang for our buck, or that we get the kinds of outcomes that we're expecting.
Well, let's look at the question of information management, because some of our guests have talked about the fact that some representatives go talk to government, but those in the local communities do not get to know what exactly government said, what exactly government's doing, and at the end of the day, it's those down there that continue to agitate. How do you think information should be better managed in that region?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure it's the people at the grassroots, who are the ones who are agitating. The man at the grassroots has a lot of issues to deal with that he doesn't have the luxury of agitating. He has a big problem of making a daily bread that he doesn't have time to deal with blowing up pipelines, etc. By the way, the technology and the equipment required to blow up a pipeline, the average man in the Niger Delta creeks doesn't have it. So we must look at that as well. Who are the real people behind these incidents? They're not the local guys in the community. They're struggling with, just getting fresh water to drink, So the point about dialoguing with the region, I agree. But the question is, who should speak for the region? We have, in various other fora, advocated for an international contact group that will be made up of, key people we know in the region who are in touch with the real pulse of the region. Not the political leadership, but people who really understand what the problems are. Match them up with some international representatives on this team so that we can jointly hold ourselves accountable. Now, this international contact team should be the group that would negotiate with government. The problem in the region is development. The government must make an irrevocable commitment to development. These groups should go and negotiate that irrevocable commitment to development. And this irrevocable commitment must be independently verifiable by the people in the region. So we'll know whether the government is delivering or not. Now, this group should be constituted with people who have real credibility with the people in the community. And the community knows their leaders. The fact that someone is a governor does not mean he's a real leader of the community. It means that the political calculation put an individual in the government house. But the people in the community know who speaks for them. And those are the people who should sit in this contact group and talk with government. Now, the body language of government needs to change as well. The launch of the cleanup in Ogoni was great. It's a master stroke. It's great because it took the winds off the sail of some of the people who are agitating in the region to show that this government cares about the region, that even in the face of declining oil revenues, they're still going ahead with the cleanup. We need to see more of that. More of that. Madam Ankyo talked about fiscal federalism. We need to see that, but all of these must be done within a world of increased transparency and accountability by a group that is credible enough to speak for the people, gain credibility with the government, secure real development, and how the development will be funded, monitored, and implemented, and then communicate the results to the people.
Now, I know you're not a security expert, but you said some things here that might be of help to the security agencies in case they are going out in search of some of these people. But you said something about the equipment needed to blow up pipelines. What kind of people should they be looking out for in the course of their investigations?
Well, there's nothing I would say here that the security agencies don't already know. In the firm I run, we have a security and conflict unit. So we work with some of the people in the intelligence and the security world. And they know. They know that the people who are blowing up the pipelines are not the mere, the little people living in the creeks. If you watch the explosions that have been happening in this phase of the insurgency, every time a pipeline is blown up, it shuts down the facility. That did not happen in the other wave. which means that these guys are more sophisticated. They know exactly where to place the bomb to shut down the facility. It is not the mere fisherman who got off his canoe and decided to go blow things up. Who is profiting from this situation? Who bunkers? Who has the ability to trade the oil that is being siphoned? The equipment that is required to move in and blow up these things, you can't move it in the dead of the night. Does it mean that the security agencies and the intelligence network that's been in the region for the past 20, 30 years do not have the intelligence to know who is behind this? So, I mean, there are a few things you can say on camera, there are others you can't. But the fact remains that the people who are charged with this task know. Anyone who claims that they don't know is probably not telling all the truth. Thank you.